I'm David Ainsworth, Head of Communications at the United Nations Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity. We're here at the Geneva Meetings. These meetings began with intensive discussions this morning over the question of digital sequence information. Now, what is digital sequence information? Well, as a result of new technologies, we've got the ability to understand the basic composition of the material of our planet and to have it digitized and put into tiny little blocks. It gives us the ability to understand more about plants, animals, the geographic origin of genetic resources. It allows us to do all kinds of important scientific work. Now, under the Convention, the issue of digital sequence information is very complex. First of all, even this term, digital sequence information, is really a placeholder because it captures a variety of different things. It could include the basic information about the DNA of a genetic resource. Or it could be larger. It could look at the associated RNA for it. Or it could get even larger. It could say, well, digital sequence information includes the proteins that are associated with these basic building blocks. Or, let's get even larger, digital sequence information could even include the knowledge that local communities have of how to use a plant or a material and make it useful. All of these things could be digital sequence information. It's an expansive definition, and not everybody shares the information. So why should we care about this for the Convention? Well, under the Convention, there's a third objective related to biodiversity. And that objective is to make sure that we have the fair and equitable sharing of any benefits that come from the use of genetic resources. So typically what that means is that if, say, a company wants to use a plant to produce a special material for an industrial process, usually what they should do under the Convention is have that material, find out where it was sourced, enter into an arrangement, an access and benefit sharing arrangement with the local community. It means the community has to be informed about what's going on and consent to it, and then they come to an agreement on mutually agreed terms. It's a procedure to make sure that for actual materials, everybody gets their fair share and it's very transparent. That's how the Convention works and its new Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing. Now, what digital sequence information injects into this is something completely new and a little bit uncertain. Because we're now talking about data and not physical samples, we need to ask ourselves, does the Convention and its Nagoya Protocol already have the rules that can manage this? These consent of mutually agreed terms, prior informed consent, and all of these legalistic terms, do they apply to bits of data that are right there? There's not necessarily an agreement on that's the case. And the other matter is too, well, how do we move forward on this? Parties this morning offered a lot of different views over an entire 3-hour session. So first of all, there were countries, mostly those who provide genetic resources, who were saying, now listen, this question of digital sequence information has the potential to really make things like the Convention, the Nagoya Protocol less effective. Therefore, they have said that they want this resolved at the same time that we're resolving the Global Biodiversity Framework. They said we can't work on it if we don't resolve the digital sequence information. We cannot agree to a Global Biodiversity Framework. Others have said, listen, this issue is extremely complex. We haven't even agreed on what is included in digital sequence information. Is it DNA? Is it RNA? Is it the proteins? Is it this traditional knowledge that's associated with it? Then they also claim that, listen, we need so much more research and answering these questions, we need to take the time, and we can't afford to delay the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework. These are two different views, and they do set up an important dynamic for these negotiations that in some ways has nothing to do with the other goals and targets of the framework. This morning, they were supposed to discuss this for 1 hour. The interventions they had from governments took 3 hours, and if it's my understanding, there's still more people who have to weigh in. That's the first reading. These discussions will be taking place over the rest of the week and quite possibly in the months to come as we lead up to the UN Biodiversity Conference in Kunming. Important questions. Will this deal with the third objective of the Convention? How does it relate to the Global Biodiversity Framework? How does it allow people who've got these genetic resources to benefit fairly and make sure everything moves forward? One other part too about this too is there's the question of research. How do we make sure that as we're doing all of this, we can make sure that important research that can allow us to advance conservation of biodiversity and other objectives is also played for. Keep following these discussions and we'll see you again soon. I'm David Ainsworth.